I hope Peter Dutton's not superstitious, hey?
Yeah.
I don't think he is, by the way.
Well, Trudy was actually telling me in the last campaign in Perth, she was on the bus and the Albanese bus, and they left some journos behind, and everyone was joking, no one left behind, you know. So these things can happen. I just wanted to show this because I want to give a shout out to our great cameramen, Dave Turner and Jared Essen, who were involved in pushing this bus and trying to assist. I've got to say, camos, they are fantastic. I remember being in Brazil for the G20 and all the camos went and assisted this lady who'd got a flat tyre while we were sitting at a restaurant. This is what they go and do. Yeah. Look, it is kind of emblematic about how the wheels haven't quite fallen off, but they have fallen off a bit of the Dutton campaign. You've seen all the way through on Newspoll, it's 52-48. He was 51-49 in early March before the work from home policy. And yeah. Unfortunately for him, that's going to be on the 6 p.m. packages with the polling everywhere tonight. That's one of those things when things aren't going right for you, they keep not going right for you.
Right. Well, it was interesting when I spoke to David Littleproud, and I'll just give the studio a bit of a heads up here. I want to show you a bit of the exchange I had with David Littleproud about the media and the scare campaigns, because I do think that there's always scare campaigns, right, in any election. David Littleproud was very frustrated with the media this morning, particularly when it comes to the cost of the nuclear plan put forward by the coalition. I'll just bring this up now.
You people don't seem to listen. And I went to the National Press Club and I made it very clear. Our total grid, mixed grid, is $331 billion. Frontier Economics put an all-renewables approach at nearly $600 billion. Yeah. $263 billion cheaper. So I don't know how many times. I don't know how many times, but Laura, with all due respect,
I asked Angus Taylor
I don't know how many times we have to say
with
it
all due respect, and he said 140 billion. So, you know.
But then where's your question to him? But hold on, Laura, where's your question to the Prime Minister today, just to challenge him about the $600 million. Well,
I'm not
You are letting him... Well, with all due respect, that's what I'm saying. The Fourth Estate has allowed him to perpetrate lies through this whole campaign about $600 billion for a nuclear campaign that you'd never, ever put the frontier economics, the negative gearing, he's run away from that. And now he's politicising our national security about what was said and what was done and what was known about Russia. You know, I think it's time that the Fourth Estate holds this Prime Minister to account.
All right, DLP. He likes to focus on his interviews on tone. I think he just went outside the playbook a little bit there. When they act like that, they're losing. When they're shooting the messenger, they're losing. Yeah. And I've got to say about this nuclear policy, OK, Labor's done a scare campaign. It's dishonest to say the 600 billion because the Smart Energy Council's a pro-renewables group. And they said between 116 and 600 billion. And you can have construction of 120. The rest of the cost is always funded by power bills. But, and this is a big but, I was there when Peter Dutton announced this policy. He announced that he was going to build 7 federal government-owned and constructed and operated nuclear power stations, and he didn't give the cost. He didn't give the cost in the first press conference. Yeah. And so he allowed the opening, and they thought they were being clever. You've got to own the narrative if you're going to create the narrative. And
look, I did point out that you are the one that's talked about the Smart Energy Council and the 600 billion. Where does it come from? And they've just kind of weirdly extrapolated the CSIRO. And there's all these reports. I mean, voters can be forgiven for being a little bit confused about this because there's been so many numbers. And look, I think Labor's been more effective at that. And I just want to be really clear on David Littleproud. He turns up every week on my show on a Monday, no matter where he is around the country. He takes the time. He understands that you've got to speak to voters, that you've got to be asked the tough questions and you've got to have an answer. Not many people in that parliament do that. Would you agree?
Well, Chris Bowen doesn't.
No, Chris Bowen doesn't. He doesn't. And he's been on my show once. And he's
well, that's once more than I've had him on.
Well, that's right. So I just want to say...
The only minister on either side not to come on.
I think it's good to have a passionate conversation, debate.
Oh, I thought that was great. So it was interesting to see him fire up, though, because that does tell me, unfortunately for the coalition, that they see this slipping away.
Yeah, I think they do as well, but I think they are frustrated about the scare campaign that has been allowed to run. And look, I'm not blaming the journos on the bus, but you've got the feedback as well, right? You see it on social media. Who are these journos asking these questions, blah, blah, blah. But what people don't see is the way that both campaigns try to minimise damage, and they try to manage the journos as much as possible. And Trudy points out, Andrew, that they really do everything they can to shut down a follow-up question, because that's where the danger is for the leaders.
Right? Morrison started this, one question per journo.
Yeah.
And Albanese's now made an art form of it, and it is unfortunate. And he's been slow in accepting interviews. I'm hopeful I can get one with him in the next couple of days. I've been talking to their people about it. Okay. But that's the sort of scrutiny that you should invite.
That's right.
If there's an election campaign on, because it's an important choice for the nation. And frankly, what have you got to hide in terms of tough questions?
And this was my whole point with Monique Ryan last week. I know she already said no to us on live television. All I asked her was how the campaign was going. Didn't want to answer the question. It's, none of these parliamentarians or wannabe candidates are victims here. They put themselves up for public scrutiny. The contest of ideas. Anyway, I want to end on this with you because I thought you'd appreciate it. The debate last night with Channel 7, weirdly, Anthony Albanese wanting to be confident but cautious in the last week of the campaign, saying he doesn't even know whether Donald Trump has a mobile phone. Well, Mick Mulvaney cleared it up for us today.
You got his number? You text him?
No, I'm not sure that he has a mobile phone, the US president.
We're not good enough to have Trump's mobile number, or he doesn't have one.
I don't know, but I know that.
Do you have Keir Starmer's number?
When we have discussions, what we do is we have note takers on both sides.
Yeah. Mr. Dutton.
I think the answer was no there, Mark. I think that was the straight answer.
I texted with him last time, I think right after the shooting in July in Pennsylvania. So, yeah, that he absolutely has a cell phone, and I sort of disappointed. By the way, the more important answer there from Prime Minister Albanese was, when we talk, there's note takers and everything. That's not how Donald Trump works. Donald Trump wants to talk to people like ordinary people. He wants to talk like you and I talk on this program. He doesn't want a bunch of intermediaries. He wants to have a normal conversation. And the world leaders who do well with Donald Trump are the people who realize that and treat him like a normal person and don't go through official channels with note takers and interpreters. Of course, you guys don't have that because most of you speak English. But that's more interesting to me than whether or not he has a phone.
Very comforting, isn't it? What happens when we get invaded? Anyway, look, I do recall that Scott Morrison and Mike used to text Mike Pompeo and Mike Pence. So I do wonder if Anthony Albanese, he hasn't had a chance to get over there, but he needs to engage there because he can't just rely on Kevin Rudd, for goodness sake.
No, he can't.
Just answer it straight and say I don't have his number, but it's pretty easy to get in contact with him.
Yeah, big last week, Andrew.
Yeah.
You're going to have fun.
Yeah.
So will I. We'll see you soon.
See ya.